I'd like to start with a guest, and that is Gary Luhrman, who is from Inovonics. And whether you have already got your update or not, uh, you're going to make sure that your system is working right. And one of the things I've seen a number of folks wanting to do recently is replace their receiver. And Inovonics has come out with a very nice little product, the Model 677. It's a half rack size. And Gary, I'm going to open it up here for you to talk about that for a little bit and tell us why this is a really good thing to have.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Barry, and thank you for the opportunity to meet with you folks today. And um, you know, looks like we've got a really good group of folks here, and yeah. So we've got this new receiver now. It's the Model 677. It's a triple receiver. This is it right here. It's a half rack size unit. So you can we have a an option where you can install it in a rack with a rack kit that we sell separately as an accessory, and you can actually put two of these together, or but one of our 677s and one of our little Inno Minis, or another half rack size unit. So we've got a whole list of portfolio of products in our Inno Mini and half rack size products that allow you to economize your space in your rack. So this is a 677 here. It's got a LCD screen on the front. It incorporates 3 independent receivers that can be tuned to independently, and all of them can be tuned to either AM, FM, or the weather band reception. It also has a nice web interface where you can monitor it remotely. Let's see what else. So you've got 3 receivers in here. On the front panel, you have you're probably, if you're familiar with our half rack size units, you're probably familiar with our the way you navigate on the front panel. It's a nice little knob here for sorting through the menu. Usually, our menu tree is very simple to get through, so it's very very simple setup. Then you have a back button here. If you get in a place where you don't want to be, then you just push the back button and it takes you back to the main menu. And you can tune all 3 tuners right from the front panel here. It also has an LED bar meter that will give you your output levels, and then some LED alarm indicators here to let you know if something's going haywire with one of your off-air receptions.
Have you got some slides, Gary?
I do, yeah. So well, okay, yeah. So I'll just share the screen then.
Sure.
Okay.
I do have a picture of one. I was going to put it up, but if you've got them, all the better.
Well, I don't have a okay. Can you folks see that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, this is basically our web page here, and I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, so I'm not going to, as they say, kill you with PowerPoint this morning, this afternoon. It's right on our web page here, which is inovonicsbroadcast.com, and this is it right here. As you can see on the front panel here, you have all 3 receivers, and it gives you some basic information: which frequency you're tuned to, the RSSI levels, and signal to noise ratio levels. And as I said, we have an LED bar meter that will give you information about the output levels. And then you have some LED alarm indicators right here. And of course, a headphone jack on the front panel. And then if we take a look at the back panel here, so you've got 3 antenna tuner connectors. The output on this product is not stereo, it's analog. And it seemed like this was quite sufficient for EAS as an EAS receiver. So you've got, proper XLR outputs here for each receiver, and you've got a LAN connector, and then these power inputs. For those of you who are not familiar with our half rack size products and our Inomini size products, all of those products have a input here that's actually have two inputs, and those actually serve two purposes. One purpose is that if you can actually connect two power supplies to that to add redundancy to the product. So if one power supply goes out, then you've got another power supply that'll take over. The other use for it is to use jumper cables to connect various Inovonics products one to another and power all of them with just one power supply. And you can usually power up to 6 units, a combination of half rack or Inomini size units, up to 6 units with just one power supply. And if you do have a number of them strung together with the jumper cables, you can also connect 2 power supplies to that string of units and add that redundancy that I spoke of earlier. I think it's a good idea to take a look at the web interface. Let me go back to our main page here.
Hey, Gary?
Yes.
Getting back to the back of there, by any chance, can you daisy chain the power supplies if there's more than one half rack unit there?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can daisy chain half racks and combine them with Inominis. They basically all have a 12 VDC input. So yes, you can daisy chain them, combine them in any form or fashion, and also have 2 power supplies for that redundancy.
Gary?
Yes.
Is it possible to if one of them fails, one of the power supplies, one of the 2 power supplies fail, is it possible to have some type of notification, email or text or something like that?
Good question. I'm not aware of that, but I'm going to have to research that. I don't think there's any indication on the web interface about the power supply. Can you hold that thought for a second and I'll check that out? Just give me 1 second, please.
I'm going to guess the connectors are just in parallel since you can use them for daisy chaining, so you wouldn't know the difference if one went out.
I asked this question when Gary was giving his presentation to SBE 124, and Brian Walker mentioned to me that their isolation is by resistor. So that allows a full short failure off of one of them, and the second power supply would keep going, but you would be able to daisy chain as long as your current draw was not significant enough to lower the power supply from that 12-volt arc.
Yeah, that sounds right. And yeah, we found that you can power up to 6 units with one power supply, but there's no alarm function that will tell you if one of the power supplies goes out, unfortunately. Let me
if you're gonna daisy chain the power supplies, do you need a different power supply or can you use the stock power supply?
Oh, well, you use just a stock power supply, and it's the one that comes with the Inovonics units, and we unfortunately I didn't bring one with me, but it's not a what they call a wall wart. It's a, it's a proper power supply, and but it's I mean, you can also power it with a standard power supply that provides 12 VDC, but yeah, there's no special power supply that you need to for the redundancy.
You just count the boxes you're going to use and then make sure you have enough amps of current to do it. So it looks good. Looks very good.
Yeah, thank you, Barry. Okay, so let's. I was going to show you the web interface, and one thing I wanted to show everyone here, if you're not aware of it, if you go to our web page and you go to the products at the top here, you'll see a window that just automatically pops down. Down at the bottom here, there's a link called Online Demo Center. And if you click that, you're going to get a list of all of the products that Inovonics manufactures that connect to has a network interface. And I'm going to looking for the 677 right now. And
the fifth one down.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. So there's the web interface. That's a real handy thing to have if you want to test out any one of our units, because basically we have a rack installed at Inovonics. It has all of our equipment installed in it, and you can access the web interface. You can control it. You can tune in channels. You can do whatever you want to do, just as if it were your own unit. We just ask you not to mess with the network. The network settings, because that kind of messes it up for everyone, right? Okay, so this here's a 677 web interface. You can see at the top here that gives you some information about the frequencies that are tuned in. In this case, we have an FM, AM, and weather band tuned in. Scrolling down a little bit, you can see here's the frequencies, the RSSI levels, signal to noise ratio, and then the output levels. And then you have some indicator lights here. If there's any sort of an alarm, these will light up red. And then scrolling down further, you have the tuners, which are very straightforward. You got your FM, select the AM or weather band, and just pick the frequency that you want. And then you can also select some tuner settings as well. These are all set up for auto, but there's lots of options for you. And let's see. Then we also have some history plots here for the RSSI and the audio. This gives you color coded what tuner you want to check out. And then there's a time span here. This is right now set up for 1 minute, but it could be set up for 10 minutes, over a 10-minute period, 1 hour, or 6 hours. Those are your RSSI history, and this is your audio history. And we have some alarms for audio loss, low signal, RDS, and alert tones. And then we have alarm logs as well for daily, weekly, monthly, or the complete alarm log. And let's see, if you want to view the alarm log, that's also available to you too, to take a quick look and see if what alarms might have gone off and when the alarms went off. I forgot to mention that one of the most important things, you probably know this, is to when you first set these up, is that you want to set up the correct time in the time zone, so that when you do get an alarm, it's accurate and it lets you know when the alarm actually happened, right? You would also, of course, want to set up your network settings to access it remotely. And and then if you're using SNMP, this also supports SNMP. And one of the things that we do at Inovonics with all our our networked products that support SNMP is that we always provide the MIB file down at the bottom here, so you don't have to go to any special web page to look for it. It's right here in the web interface to download the MIB file. Yeah, if we move over to the admin page here, the 677 does have some security to it to, I guess, restrict access. You could have just the front panel password, the web admin password for read and write, and then web user password for read only. And that's always a handy thing to have if you want to keep, as you guys probably know, to keep people from messing around with the gear when they want to learn something or make mistakes with doing some programming on the gear that they shouldn't be messing with. One of the other things that we have at Inovonics for all our online gear is that we have a user manual available in the admin section. So if you're on site, you don't happen to have the printed manual, which comes with all of our units come with printed manuals, but it's understandable, of course, that you're not going to be carrying those around with you wherever you go. So if you're on site and you need to access some information on the user manual, that's available for you right here in the admin. It's a PDF file, and you can access it and consult the user manual right on your computer.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Can you stream the stations that you're receiving? Can you stream them so you can hear what they sound like remotely?
Yes, very good question. And I should have pointed that out to you. Yes, if you at the very top of the upper right-hand corner of the web interface, there's a little icon here, a speaker icon, and you can click that and hear the stream. You have to select between the three receivers. There's you just select 1, 2, or 3, and then click that speaker icon, and then it'll stream it and you can listen to it remotely.
Okay, thank you. I have one more comment, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely.
As far as EAS receivers, and I'm going to be honest, it's a great product, but it seems way overkill for what most people need for EAS receiver. Like, I can't think of ever having to change frequencies on my EAS receivers. Because once you set them, they're usually there. But being able to stream it offline or online to hear what your EAS receiver sounds like is great. But I guess I wanted to put it out there, a pitch to maybe have a dumbed down version that doesn't have the online capability that's cheaper, maybe. That's just my thoughts, though.
So you don't want to have an online capability?
I don't need one. Couldn't think of any reason I'd ever have to log into my EAS off-air receiver.
Well, if it's not online, then how are you going to stream it?
Well, that's other than streaming it, but that's a feature that is cool that I would probably use. But as it is right now, whenever I go to transmitter, that's when I check what the audio sounds like. But it's just I'm getting to be honest, it just seems like a high price tag for an EAS off-air receiver. Maybe if there was a cheaper, like $1,000 one that had no online ability, would be something I'd be looking for.
Okay. Well, thank you for that comment. I can see what the boss says about that.
Thank you for listening. I feel it's a great product. I feel like I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, no, that's a great comment. One of the other applications to this receiver actually is I don't know if you folks are familiar with our site streamer products. So a site streamer is basically an off-air receiver that you can access remotely, and it's used for monitoring your transmitters remotely. So with this, you can actually receive three stations simultaneously and do that remote monitoring, rather than having one site streamer for each receiver. Of course, with the site streamers, there's a thing called station rotation, which allows you to sort of rotate between presets and do monitoring that way. But this will give you. We found that some broadcasters like to use this because they like to, let's say, use one tuner for their broadcasts and then the other two for maybe a competitor's broadcast in their markets. So,
Okay, Gary.
Yes.
He's got to leave shortly here, but I'd like to bring Bill Robertson in because Bill has informed me that they at DASDEC have an app to integrate this more closely with the DASDEC.
Yes, that's true. We've been working with them. So I need to pause share. Is that it? Or
Like this?
oh, there we go. Thanks, Barry.
Not a problem.
Hey, Barry, thanks very much. A quick one. I was going to address very quickly Brady's comment. What we found with our units where we have, even if people are using the internal tuners, every now and again, they'll use the third one to monitor themselves. So one of the things about streaming and everything about having the three tuners like Inovonics has put in there, requirements are typically for two monitoring assignments, but the third one can be used to stream yourself and use it as a monitoring thing to maybe tune yourself in when you need to, or just verify. So it's not a bad confidence receiver element to have. And I commend them in thinking that thing too. Our work with Inovonics right now is working on an application note on how their box interfaces with us. The output of their unit is a balanced output. We use a unbalanced input for our external receivers. So one of the things that we've looked at is being able to have what the cabling should be, how it should be to go from balanced to unbalanced and feed it into our box. So we're going to be showcasing that as an application note for people that want to use this receiver. I saw very quickly, and again, I'm jumping very quickly here and running fast. My colleague Ed is on here also to address, I think, Barry, some of the other ones, but I do have a hard stop at the bottom of the hour. The front end on the DASDEC, I'm not sure how it compares to the internal receivers we have, but there's definitely some opportunity for, and that's why we're excited about working with Inovonics on this thing, is there are times when our internal receivers are not the right thing to do, or you've got some other reasons to have something as nice as this particular type of receiver. It's nice for our receivers since they're integrated. You already have the wiring and everything. You don't have any external things to deal with. But nonetheless, there are some times, especially where you've got very, and what we found more so is AM and selectivity for certain AM things. If you've got a certain thing that you want to do, and the ability for them to scale bandwidth and things like that is much greater than what we have. So you can dial in things a little bit tighter, which is why we really want to support them and the whole idea of, if you can't use our internals, there's a great external receiver combination that can work.
Bill, you raised some interesting points here, one of which came up in the comments here about changing the frequencies when weather radio is off for a month or more at a time. Yeah, Brady, there are times when you don't set it and forget it. The other thing, Bill, you mentioned the AM. And I'm in a conversation with a particular AM station or an FM that monitors an AM station. At night, they lose their signals. And what we discovered was with the monthly test, because every other month they go from day to night, at night they don't get a solid reading off the radio. So this would be a good way in which you would want to monitor it offline, check to see what's going on, especially if you don't want to drive 70 miles to find out what's happening after dark, and Secondly, the ability to change the frequency if you need to change your monitoring.
Yep, absolutely. No, I think that's great. Gary, and team, I apologize, but I do, as I said, had a hard stop. I did want to get in there. Gary, thanks very much for that. We'll look forward to talking with you again soon. Gary, I know you had some other things about EAS, and I'm sure Ed is on that he can address them from our side. So thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you for being here. And Gary, did you guys do any testing to see how your front end compares with the DASDEC front end?
No, we haven't.
I mean, that's sort of esoteric in a way, but it answers one of the questions is if you are in a position where, let's say your receive signal is somewhat flimsy, would you be better to be feeding it, or would the internal DASDEC be?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess you'd have to test to see which one receives better.
Or we need to get Bill and Ed to do more testing and let us know.
Yeah, I mean, we're working with them. I think Bill has a unit that he's testing to test compatibility with their product, and that's kind of where we've left it. We've left it with them basically to do that testing.
Good. Well, we'll keep asking until we get the answers.
Gary,
Yes.
when you were showing the soft panel, did I see that there were memory slots in there for other assignments that you could pull up and drop into the receivers?
Oh, you mean like presets?
Yeah. Are those presets, are they triggerable by the GPIO?
Yeah, there's no presets on the 677.
Okay.
But that would be a nice function to have, wouldn't it?
Well, I'm tagging back to what Barry talked about with daytime and nighttime necessities for changing receivers. If a GPIO could, or a timer, could be inside of that function loop.
Who supplies the AM antenna?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Who supplies the AM antenna? Is Bell R still making those?
I don't know what Bell R's doing these days, but we do have an AM antenna. It doesn't come with a unit. But we do have an AM loop antenna.
Okay, thanks.
What about, Gary, the VHF and the FM receivers? Can they tune both bands?
Oh, for the TV?
No, just so that if you want two FMs and you have an FM and a VHF, you just tune it?
Yes, he said each of the three bands can be changed to AM, FM, or weather.
Dynamically?
Well, no, I mean, not dynamically. You just go in and tune it in on the web interface or on the front panel.
Well, let's say I buy a unit and it has the AM, FM, and VHF in it, right? Can I, in the field, make it an FM, FM, VHF receiver?
Yeah, I mean, you can, each one of the receivers is independent. So you select if you want AM, FM, or weather band.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike, you can choose AM, FM, FM.
Yeah.
Whatever rocks your world.
Right.
So basically you've got each channel, if you will, has 3 independent radios in it because it's all SDR.
Yeah. Good.
Any other questions for Mike, for Gary, about the 677? Nice box.
What's the list price?
The list price is $2,300, but you're gonna find it a little bit better deal from any one of our dealers.
Of course.
There was a question about using GPIO to select preset frequencies and so on, and it seems like moving remote control and so on, I think, is moving away from individual wires. I suspect you'd do that instead over SNMP or a TCP connection or something, and just have your control system tell it to do that. So is the frequency tunable over SNMP?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so that could be something that somebody would put in their remote control when it's nighttime, send a command, change the frequency.
Good point.
Since I used to make remote controls in the days where everything was on a separate wire.
All right. Don't run away, Gary, but let's bring Ed in, Ed Czarnecki, who is very active on some of the committees that are advising the FCC. Sad to say, the FCC does not seem to take advice very well, nor does the Weather Service. I got a story about that I don't know that they want me to tell you. But Ed, if you're with us, can you talk to us? First of all, there's a question was raised here about logging requirements for HD 234. Uh-oh. Did we lose Ed?
No, I'm here. I'm just speaking to a muted microphone as usual. I have to look a little bit more into that, but generally speaking, all activities through your EAS device are logged. Not specifically through what channels their outputs they're going to, but whether it's been received and how it's been, whether it's been forwarded. So it's up to you have to see the logging capabilities on your device as well as how you're using it.
I think the question is more along the lines of if you have your EAS box hooked to your main channel or HD1, do you have to still do it to send a test out on the others?
Oh, well, okay. So it's about logging. You're required to present or broadcast the national alert, and thereby all alerts on all streams you're sending. So HD 1, 2, 3, 4, DT 1, 2, dot 1, dot 2, dot 3. If you're doing digital television, yes.
Mike, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. We've got leased channels for HD 3, and the question came about was, do they have to have unique weekly tests? And you just answered that. And then the logging thereof, those weekly and of course any forwarded tests, monthly, national, et cetera, et cetera. We download that, we inspect the log weekly and put it in a file for 2 years.
2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ed, one of the questions that has come up this past week are, now that we have this upgrade that everybody's paid their money for, and some are still working at it, I'm told, and the FEMA certificate change for April is available for those who have upgraded earlier and didn't get it, but it is there now.
Mm-hmm.
What is the FCC talking about, adding an MEP code or requiring different languages?
That's just the beginning of what they're talking about. Let me start with an anecdote to let you know how much of a silly season we're in right now. I heard there's a national election coming up sometime soon. So the FCC has been more active over the last 6 months than they have been in a decade. If you caught the news, Chairman Rosenworcel had been sending letters out to manufacturers of electrical electrical cars, trying to pressure them or see where the stances are on preventing those internet-connected cars from being misused by perpetrators of domestic violence. I can't even really coherently put this, but since the car is ostensibly connected to the internet, the FCC is now asking, way out of its swim line, in my opinion, what are you doing to protect people who might be on a joint account for that electronic car? So the domestic abuser, and this is a Texas case, can't turn off the car, prevent it from changing its settings. I'm not going to go beyond that and commenting on, but then to say the FCC is in hyperdrive when it comes to finding new ways to investigate social goods, accessibility, you name it. One of which is, of course, missing endangered people. There are a host of codes or processes, I should say, for missing people: gray alerts, silver alerts, Ashanti alerts, purple alerts. I'm sure there are other colors or names I've missed out there. The FCC has decided to bundle all of that, even though each state have its own plan and approach, but bundle all of that under a new proposed code, the Missing Endangered Person MEP code. I give it 300% chance of passing.
If it does pass, then what happens? Does that require another paid upgrade?
Well, that depends on your manufacturer. And I want to be careful when we talk about paid upgrades and how different manufacturers approach it. When we came out version 5, which was a major software update, change in OS, a whole bunch of security features added. It's a full platform upgrade. Our regulatory changes came out in digital alert systems. Regulatory changes came out in version 5.2. That was not a paid upgrade. Anybody on version 5 series could upgrade the regulatory changes at no cost. We're stuck in a world right now that before 5, that's 32-bit insecure software. We can't go back. We can't go back, do updates on software that's compromised. So, but just a couple of points of clarification, at least for digital alert systems. Strictly speaking, 5.2 is not an update you pay for. You can download it from our website. The certificate upgrade in April is not something you need to pay for. We have the certificate bundle on our website already. You can just upload that certificate. We're not charging for that. Our intent would be not to charge if the Ed Commission adds any number of new event codes. What we need to be careful about is whether the FCC manages, and they've done this every time, whether just by coincidence of timing, they issue their changes. Their changes come in after we issue a major upgrade. And I hate when that happens, that their timeline of a year or 8 months after it gets published in the Federal Register doesn't sync well with when we're planning to do a paid upgrade in a year or 2 or 3, whenever we do our next major update. But it is tough to coordinate with the FCC because they are a regulatory entity, and a lot of their inner proceedings are opaque to us. We don't know what their timing is or what they're doing. But like I said, given the season, I would give this a 300% chance of passing the open meeting as a proposed code, and then sometime after that they'll do the formal proceeding and it will become regulation. And I think the only question the FCC will ask is how long would it take to reasonably implement in EAS systems, and we'll have to. For my part, I have to go back to the cable industry and talk to them about that. The biggest challenge for us is the cable industry. It's not as simple as just running out and doing a software upgrade in a cable system. We have to go through all sorts of conformity stuff on that side. But I would guess within a year, we're seeing MEP as an active code.
But again, as you say, for the DASDEC owners, they don't need to worry about that at all.
Well, they need to worry about installing it.
Yeah.
And the thing I'm worried about, of course, is timing. Because if we have a version 6, and I'm not part of the software planning team, but if we have a version 6 coming out and the FCC delays this code for 2 years, that could get into an awkward overlap. And I'm not looking forward to that.
No, I understand. Well, let's shift off to another proposal, NPRM, wish list, whatever you want to call it. And that's putting out alerts in multiple languages. How close is this to becoming reality, and what does this bring upon the broadcaster?
Well, the NPRM sailed through unanimously. The comments that will be given will be interesting to read. Let's just to say that. The proposal is to put an unknown number of alerts on the EAS devices in text and audio format. Simply put, let's just say we just use all the warning codes, not the watches, the statements, the non-credit. Let's say we have to put on all the warning codes, let's say 30, because I'm bad at math, do it as easy, 30 times 13 languages. Okay, that's how many audio files the EAS box will need to store, and that many templates will need to store. For the DASDEC, that's no problem at all. The mechanism of building a if-then proposition, that if you want to do an alert in, pick a language, one of the 13 in French or whatever, and there's no French cap message, and we're going to use this template, then use the audio and the text product, the FCC. That's doable. We do that right now with English, Spanish, French, Hmong, and Somali. The problem I see is objectively, the messages could be meaningless in English or in foreign languages. We're putting out standard EAS messages in 13 languages. Shelter in place. One of the challenges we had in Minnesota, we did a project with these 6 languages. Shelter in place is a really tough concept to translate in different languages. Can mean nothing. So the FCC has a lot, or whoever's developing these language templates has a lot of work in front of them. I'm not sure they fully realize the scope of the proposal, but to put out a meaningful prepackaged sentence for some of these event codes is going to be problematic from their perspective.
But how would a broadcaster utilize that in multiple languages, whatever the message happens to be?
So the proposal is that I don't know whether I have to reread it in terms of whether it's shall or should, may or might. Oh, the very big meaning difference in those words.
Right.
But what the FC is shifting towards is asking the broadcaster to air the alert in the language of your programming.
Okay.
So we had the question about the different logging that your different stream. Let's say you're doing I'll pick on, it's not one of the 13 languages of Polish. Let's say you're doing the Polish channel. You want to do a Polish alert. Your programming is Polish. You would insert the Polish alert over this channel. What we might suggest is air the full English. I mean, this is our comment, so we're actually with air the English alert, because that's going to be complete, and then air the translated message, because it's better than nothing. But you're not going to be expected to put all 13 languages in a row. That would be nutty. The guys that are going to have a challenge is cable. That's, not hypothetical, like Comcast or Verizon or Charter, where they have hundreds. I mean, DT and I'm sorry, HD and standard def channels, upwards of 1,500 channels, many of which are foreign language, some of which are generically international, and the cable operator themselves may not know what language is on any given time. Is that the cable operator's responsibility? That is a massive re-architecture of their systems. And I just, I look forward to getting a discussion with our colleagues on the cable side, but that is a really serious challenge. It's not as simple as just
broadcasters, wouldn't it? If you're running a Spanish language
sure
program, would you, as the broadcaster, have to originate this, or will it come from CAP?
Well, that's the if-then that we need to look at. And when I throw out that if-then logic, that if-then logic is mine. That's not the FCC's. They're just saying, if you're doing a different level of program, a different language programming, then you could use these templates they'll provide the EAS manufacturer. What I'm saying is there are many more nuances we could go here, that if it's just an EAS message over the air and you're concatenating a message in English, well, then using these pre-stored templates kind of makes sense if you're doing that language. If you've got a cap message in the foreign language, that's going to be more informative, then run with that. Okay, so we're actually talking about a fair amount of programming. When I say this is easy to do, the storage is there on the DASDEC, but we're going to have a whole lot of programming to do. I'm trying to look at it from your perspective, but like I said, from my perspective of the manufacturer, who pays for this programming? Because if you look at the people that are the broadcasters are doing non-English programming, it's usually the guys who can't afford software updates. These are the stations with the least economic resources. So what do I do? What do we do? And I'm speaking hypothetically. We haven't even gotten to the stage of arguing this internally because it's still still a pros rulemaking. But if we do we have to amortize the cost of this development across all broadcasters, all our customers? That's a tough one, because now we got a paid update to do this. Do we just charge broadcasters using a given language? Well, then we got to package all that cost in just a very small handful of users who are doing Chinese or Korean or Arabic or some of these 13 languages. This is I'm voicing a business challenge here that we have and that you have. Who pays for this? Thank you very much, FCC. It's noble, but somebody has to pick up the cost of this.
Assuming from what you're saying that this will be a text-to-speech arrangement, you're going to have to make...
No, it won't. What the FCC is saying, they will give us the audio files and they will give us the text templates. And when an alert comes in, we can make that text available to RDS or EAS character generator and play that audio on the air. That gets to problem number one, that the audio, if the audio is pre-recorded, these alert messages are going to be incredibly generic to the point they're not useless. They're not useful. There's a tornado. You can't even put in the county name unless we're going to do a little more development and put in the county name in English, which could kind of work. There is a tornado warning in your area. That's it. Okay. If you're an AM station covering, hundreds of square miles, that's even worse than a standard EAS message.
Well, it's like even here in LA County, we get a storm alert, and it's for way up in the high desert. But it's broadcast by the two LP1s, and nobody knows that it's for that area. It's not specific.
Well, the Weather Service will tell you that they have geo-targeting now and little geometric.
But that's not translated to broadcast.
No, it's not. It's for the cell industry. And their next step was partial county alerting, except that in our case down here, where they've split the county up, there's one station that is in a partial county, but cannot receive the Weather Service broadcasts. So you call the Weather Service, and after a period of 5 years, they do nothing except we're looking into it. And then they throw it back on the station or the inquirer. You're going to have to do this by yourself. That's the Weather Service today.
Now, what happens to a brokered station that's doing multiple languages, and that the languages may change hour by hour? What are they required to do?
If the language changes hour by hour?
Yes.
Well, day parting. I mean, that's a challenge. If you're day parting, do you have to somehow go in and switch the language of the EAS? Or is it still in a shall mode that we'll do it, but it'll have to be in English because it's too complex to change in real time? Or you just tell the FCC, thank you very much. This is the last straw. We're just going to do an EAN and NPT and have a nice day.
Yeah, I don't imagine there'd be anybody who'd be able to change the languages at such a station.
Well, it would take some coordination. I mean, for example, if you had a secure environment, you could just log into the DASDEC and change the language, which you can do in our interface right now across 5 different languages. But still, you have to have that person knowing the schedule and log in to change the language at the top of the hour or whenever the day part begins.
And it could be a schedule, like a calendar.
It could be.
Yeah, hourly, Polish, Martian, Venetian, Jupiterian, or whatever you call it. So I'm trying to be non-specific here, except I'm Polish, so I can say that.
Well, I have a lot of challenges, and I'll let you think about all these challenges. Another one is we're taking the top 13 languages in the United States, which is great generically, but we don't live in a generic country. Well, I live in Northern Virginia, which is about generic as you can get at this point. But you go to Chicagoland, and you're going to hear a lot of Russian, Polish, and Ukrainian. Okay, 2 of those 3 languages are not in the top 13. Chinese, which dialect of Chinese, and on and on and on. You go to South Florida, you get into communities, of course, Spanish, but Portuguese, Pidgin Creole, etc. So I don't want to create a slippery slope. I'm just saying to add more languages. That's going to happen. Community group with language number 14 will say, well, why about us? Why is the cutoff only 13? New York, their alert system has something like 20 capability to handle something like 20 different languages, but it's websites, it's text, it's scripts that's updated with templates. That's doable, but I mean, what are we trying to do here with a broadcast system that does at one language at a time?
Templates also indicates that somebody's got to voice these things.
Well, the FCC is going to create. Yeah. So my question is, what agency is contracting what entity with what credentials, nonprofits, to build these templates, and how are they being vetted? I'm not being critical about that. I just had an objective question. In Minnesota, we worked with Twin Cities Public Television, a subgroup called ECHO, which did merge with Twin Cities Public Television, and a whole group of community folks to translate Hmong and Somali into for alert templates, and to do.
I'll go even more generic. The Spanish spoken in Mexico is not the same as the Spanish spoken in Spain or Cuba or Venezuela
or Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. Well, even if the language is the same, the accent could be so distinct. If you go to Argentina, their accent is so distinct. It doesn't even sound like Spanish. It's closer to Italian, if you will. Well, I didn't want to go down too many bunny holes, but there are a lot of things to think about. And from you guys as broadcasters, again, NAB will file. I encourage you or your corporate owners to get in touch with NAB and give your input to them. I would say the same thing if this is a cable conference, a cable meeting for the cable industry. But I'm hopeful that linguistic groups will chime in meaningfully. What I mean meaningful is not, oh, this is great, it can be translated. Actually, technologically, there are a whole lot of issues. And linguistically, there are a whole lot of issues. One of the things I wanted to mention about working with Hmong and Somali, there are words that don't exist in certain languages, like tornado. There's no such thing as a tornado in Vietnam. So the word tornado doesn't exist in Hmong. We had to work with the community to create a local consensus on what word fit best to translate tornado. Shelter in place is a concept that is actually deceptively ambiguous when you start translating it. Shelter in place, does that mean stay where you are? Move to find a better place to shelter? And depending how you translate it, could have very distinct meanings. There's a lot of outreach and training that needs to happen to get these alerts accepted by local limited English proficiency communities to understand them, to use them, especially if these are super generic templates like they can be. If they're going to be concatenated sentences, like the way we do it, which raises a problem. The FCC is taking the way we do things with our language translation and going to the other EAS manufacturers saying, do it that way. Whoa, wait, tell you what, we invented this. That's a problem in of itself. But if we all agree that is the way to do it, well, all of a sudden now we're creating text-to-speech voices with fill-in-the-blank capability, and now it starts getting more expensive and more complex.
And things could be said that are quite strange, because in languages like Chinese, tone is important as pronunciation. And instead of telling somebody to shelter in place, they could be asked to kiss a cow or something like. I'll stop.
Kiss your cow goodbye.
I had a comment on the day parting thing. Can the automation system send a command to the box saying, at this time, switch to this language?
In theory, but again, you're talking about new programming. And also creating, I mean, there are a lot of automation systems. We're going to have to create a consensus on what the command is across EAS manufacturers who don't exactly talk too much to each other, and on the various automation companies. So in theory, yes, but in deployment, you're talking about more significant changes to EAS devices I don't think anybody wants to pay for.
Very good. And from the working in the cinema industry, there's a ES for Spanish and ES 419, the regional code for Latin American Spanish. So
yeah,
it's being dealt with in other areas also.
Yeah, it is. When I developed something called the Advanced Emergency Information Specification in ATSC 3.0, it's a new way to deliver urgent information, not just EAS, but it's a way to deliver urgent information over next-gen television. Again, same language problems about language codes and standardizing language codes. But on the plus side, I would suggest that if you're doing that, if you're able to do that type of language load in broadcast in ATSC 3.0, do English over EAS and let your viewer select the language of their preference in the setup. That way, if there's a Portuguese track, the Portuguese track is playing, and it can interrupt automatically there. If you're using the AEA, it's like a pop-up application. If the broadcaster is using that service, then all the languages can be there, and in your setup, the text of that alert would appear there. But again, I think this is the cart way before the horse. We're developing these capabilities. The FCC has just fielded a really complex issue, and I don't think comprehends the complexity of it.
No,
that's an interesting way of if they're standardized codes, you could put all that in the receivers instead of broadcasting it. The TV could have the recording.
It could. We want to be careful because you don't want to inadvertently make the TV a Part 11 certified device.
No, and you don't want to have people kissing cows. Ed, let me.
Well, speak for yourself, Barry.
Barry really does not like cows.
No, you can take guff from a cow. Here's another aspect, and we haven't even touched Canada. I don't know how many Canadians are with us today, but I understand they're coming up on their semi-annual test, so that they get one test every 6 months, and that's it. Are you familiar with all this, Ed?
Very familiar. Yeah, we're most of the Canadian cable industry and TV. Well, they do regional and national tests, live tests. They don't have a weekly test. Their system is very different in a number of aspects, but it is multilingual from day one.
Well, I
they
can
do
tell you that 26 languages in New York, not going to cover it.
No, no. Their multilingual is English and French. They're wrestling with the idea of maybe some of the Pacific region languages need to be at least on the west part of the country, and the First Nation Native American, the First Nation tribes, which use their native languages quite a bit more than Native American tribes in the continental U.S. They are also advocating to have alerts in their First Nation language, which is going to be really interesting because the written form of their language is not in any. It's pictograms. It's not supported by any computer language, UTF language that's around. So that's been one of the many reasons that's been held off. But the whole challenge of multilingual and accessible alerting is a big one. I know it's the right thing to do. We all would agree in concept it's the right thing to do because you don't want to leave anybody behind. But right now you have regulators, for whatever reason, rushing out a proposal, which I think really should be baked in a technical committee first. And I'm hoping to collaborate with NAB, NCTA, all the acronyms, and tell the FCC we don't disagree, but this needs to be done in a technical working group first, not just rammed out as a matter of regulation, especially in complex systems like cable, where if it's going to cost $100 million or engineer a cable system, somebody's going to have to pay for that.
Well, that unfortunately is not the FCC's wheelhouse, determining who's going to pay for it.
Well, there are in administrative law, you can't make rules that are that out of whack. They could easily contestable in court.
And how are you going to deal with streaming services, which are becoming extremely popular now? How are you going to get an EAS message into YouTube?
That's the big one, and I keep scratching my head about this. One of the big ones.
Sorry to throw you back into therapy there, Ed, but
No. It's an interesting one because, on the one hand, my anecdote was about the domestic abusers and electronic cars, EV cars. I threw it out there a bit out of a humor and context, but if the commission thinks they can strong arm the EV industry to do something over there, at the same time they don't think they can do something on the streaming video side. And I mean, I think it's pretty much undeniable at this point that some of the major streaming services are carrying live programming and are essentially acting as cable operators.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see in the future a lot more regulation coming down as the FCC tries to take hold of this.
Well, at least until November, and then depending on who wins, it could stop again.
And depending upon a number of court systems, and it sure seems like we've always been a rather litigious society, but it just seems like you say it's a nice day outside and the lawyers descend.
I'm a political scientist and a historian by academic training, and I'm quite sure it'll take us at least 100 years to figure out objectively what the hell has been going on over the last 25 years in this country.
Do you see any drawing closer together of the EAS systems in the US and Canada?
Drawing closer?
Yeah.
I know there's work for cross-border collaboration, coordination. And I was just talking with a public broadcaster in upstate New York, and a huge part of their viewership is in Canada, right across the lake. So, yeah, there's a need. There's a huge need for coordination. But these are different jurisdictions with different event codes in part, and they're different countries. So we'll see. There will be greater coordination. There's already coordination on earthquake sensors, tsunami sensors. I'm sure there'll be a greater coordination on alert codes. But we'll have to see where it comes to the point of a whether Ontario will be able to issue an alert targeted towards people in upstate New York. That would be interesting, to say the least. Or if Governor Hochul will issue an alert for people in Ontario.
Well, as Rich well knows, New York is probably the epitome of problems, as weather in this country tends to move west to east. And with the 50 kilowatt stations out of New York covering 5 states, 6 states without exercising any sweat, they could be doing EAS messages 24/7, especially if we have multiple languages.
Absolutely. Gee.
Well, Barry, I have to step away for about 15 minutes. Speaking of lawyers, I have to have a call with them for a couple minutes. I'll pop by back if I can.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate the input and explanations, and we'll see what else is coming along.
Barry, I'm going to jump in I'm being called away, so I'm going to have to jump out. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's a pleasure seeing everyone. We'll probably see you on the road sometime. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
I'm sure you're probably going to have something else before NAB to let us know and sort of envy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
I love their toys.